Hello, hello. Hope you guys doing fantastic today. It's time for Chasing Born, curse stacking titan that uses curses to absolutely devastating effect to decrease the stats, the resistances, the speed of enemies to absolute zero. Um, a build that would allow you to literally perma-stun enemies if you wanted to invest enough into slow effect and curse effect. So it's is the strongest warrior build I've played so far. I know I say the strongest this word very often, but I guess the builds are just improving. It is what it is. But for warriors, definitely this is the strongest I've played so far. It makes it mocks pinnacle bosses because it kills them in one hit. Maps are very smooth, very easy. Yeah, the character is very good. And here's the build guy. But we're going to jump into showcase very quickly in 2 seconds because in 2 minutes because there's a lot to talk about, right? But before we begin, there is important information I have to share. This is not a I don't want to let's just call it. This is not a beginner friendly build. This is not a SSF friendly build. There are things that you just need to have in order for the build to it's going to function without these things, but without these things, it's just going to feel really bad. I know it because I level up, I tested everything. And from my experience, I can tell you right now, guys, that you definitely cannot just start this build like as is. You will have to level up your Titan until level, I don't know, recommended level is 84 because at level 84 you get level 19 skill gems and level 19 curses. So about level 84, I would say is when you can confidently think about respecting into this because you're going to have enough passive points to make it feel good. And there are items that are absolutely mandatory. On top of that, why I said that it's not beginner friendly. I mean, technically, if you had currency and everything and a character, then you can start it, right? But there is one problem is that you will have to make decisions while playing this build. And there are just so many different variations and options that I'm going to go over. As I go over everything like skill gems, passive tree, jewels, and stuff like that, it will become clear that it's just not your everyday. Oh, just yeah, get your gear and you're ready to blast, right? It's a little bit more complicated than that. I don't want to like scare you or anything like this because it's not bad, right? But there will be decisions that you will have to be making, and I'm going to go over everything. But once again, I need to mention that there's the disclaimer that this is not. If you think that with no currency, nothing whatsoever, you're going to start this build and it's going to feel good, don't start it. That's my warning right now. Don't even start it. Let's go into it because there's a lot to talk about. So, with the showcase, I'm not going to do. I don't know. Let's do slick. I'm not going to do bosses showcase of bosses, anything like that, because I already uploaded the one video 2 days ago, another video like 3 or 4 days ago when I one shot tier 4 Zesht. So I don't think that's mandatory really. Um, the build does insane amounts of single target damage because Hammer of the Gods ignites scale very hard with temp chains. The reason why Hammer of the Gods feel really good to me with this build and I'm not using Perfect Strike is because number one, it scales very hard with ignite because temporal chains will increase the effect of negative effects on enemies, so that counts into ignite as well. Number two is the most annoying, frustrating thing about Hammer of the Gods is that it takes some time before it falls down to the ground. And many people say that, this is the annoying part, like bosses sometimes get out of the way. With this build, bosses pretty much don't move, so, well, that problem is solved. But, yeah, mention curse stacking build. We're stacking curse effect and slow effect. We're not really stacking slow effect. I had more, and I decided to drop some from the skill tree because enemies already reached the point where they couldn't move. Pretty much. I mean, look at this, right? Like, What is going to kill you potentially? Like they're playing the monsters playing PoE 3. Like literally, like if everything is playing PoE 1, warriors playing PoE 2, then monsters playing PoE 3 with this build. They just can't move at all. So of course the effect is the slow is less effective on rare monsters and bosses, but that's still more than enough to just like we have 10,000 yes. I'll be honest, like I don't think I was like a single time. Maybe I was a single time in danger when I was doing like a disgustingly difficult Citadel map with like it had so many damage mods that you could write a novel about it. So that was the only one when the map was tricky, and the boss still died in one hammer, obviously. But yeah, I mean, I feel like some content creators, I don't know if they do it just, you could do it for fun, but some content creators make a mistake of, oh, my build reached 50 million damage or something like that, and I kill everything instantly. And they think that they will make the build better by quadrupling their damage. Like, oh, I went from 50 million to 200 million, and now my build is 4 times better, right? No, you still kill everything instantly. The build has literally not changed one bit. You're literally having the same thing. You're playing the same thing. So, there's, in my opinion, it's only worth it to invest into a mechanic until certain point, unless it keeps on giving you like more and more and more advantage. And once it stops giving you like, once there is no difference anymore, like you should invest into something else, like for example tankiness. You should spend your points somewhere else, right? And use your gear slots. So, might be just my opinion, but I think that's what's reasonable. This is why I stopped investing into slow effect. I got only enough so that the build feels very, very good, very smooth. I put blink into the build for mobility. Mobility with blink feels infinity times better. I was going to go over this rare because I don't like my maps not being finished. So I bet it's true for you guys as well. But yeah, it's going to become very, very clear very soon as I'm going to start talking about everything, that this build is just not beginner friendly, because there will be decisions you'll have to make, and I bet that for every player this build is going to look, maybe not for every player, but for many people this build is going to look a little bit different, because you'll just have to make the decisions and make some small changes. You can copy this completely, like every passive point to every passive point, and it's going to be virtually the same. But yeah, short information about leveling. Leveling, once again, is not going to be in this guide, because you're going to level as Molten Titan. In my opinion, that's my recommendation. You're going to level as Molten Titan, then you're going to respec. I have leveling for basically a warrior, like in 2 different guides already, because this is my 3rd warrior guide. So I thought that there is no point to talk about it, especially that the video is most likely going to be pretty long, as usual. One thing though, there are notes in the written guide. Of course, the link is in the description. With some basic stuff, basic information. But as I mentioned before, you can level as a Molten Titan to whatever level you want. My recommended level is 84, but it's totally fine if you respec at level 88, 90, to have all the skill points needed. But yeah, I would say that my recommendation is the minimum level to respec is 84, and then you can think about starting this build respecing if you have mandatory items and jewels. So we're gonna get to it later, but yeah, that's about it about leveling. Let's go into it right away, because I don't want to make this video like hour and a half or 2 hours or something like that. The previous one was 77 minutes. That's already insane. All right, so the main skill that we use in this build is Mace Strike. We put magnified effect, martial tempo, close combat, fire infusion, and primal armament. Magnified effect, in my opinion, is mandatory for more area of effect. At this point, you're pretty much investing into more damage. So martial tempo for attack speed to make it feel smooth. I think this is also mandatory. This slot is honestly, you can put many things here. I tried Fury Death. Unfortunately, the support is completely useless because the explosions, the corpse, it makes it so that the enemies you kill have 60% chance for corpses to explode. There's only one problem: these corpses explode after like a second or something. Makes this support completely useless in my opinion. So that's out of the way. I tried fire penetration, and fire penetration is not too bad to be honest, because it's just going to give you 30% fire pen, right? So it's useful in maps where enemies have like, I don't know, plus 70, 75% elemental resistances. Uh, that is going to be probably more effective. But what you can do without thinking, and is going to be most likely the best in slot support here in almost every map, except for maybe like the resistance maps. You can put close combat here, and it's going to be fine, right? If you have any better ideas, let me know. But I think this is it. And fire infusion for 25% as extra fire, and primal armament. Very simple, as much damage as possible. This is basically what I use on Molten Titan, I believe. It's exactly the same setup, right? Next, Hammer of the Gods. Hammer of the Gods, we have Conk Effect, because some people don't use it because they want their hammer to be bigger so that the bosses walking away from the range is not that big of a problem. I'll be honest, I haven't found a single situation where I did hundreds of maps, dozens of bosses, pinnacle bosses also. I haven't found myself in a single situation where boss got out of the way, except for one time when boss had slow immunity because of this. Boss got slow immunity modifier because of this, and that was Doriani, a boss that moves all the time. And I still managed to hit my hammer on him and kill him in one hit. But that was the most unlucky thing of all time. Doriani, the boss that is notorious for moving a lot, and he got slow immunity from a modifier. So that was unlucky. That was the only time that I missed my hammer on this character. Other than that, it never happens. So less area of effect shouldn't be a problem. That's a fat 40% more area damage multiplier, and you should take it and use it, boys. It's beautiful. Next up, Searing Flame. This build, we scale Ignite duration. It would be stupid not to scale any damage over time. I think that Ignite is better than Bleed. You might fight me on this one, but the Ignite just makes a lot of sense to me. And I'm using Searing Flame and Eternal Flame for Ignite duration and more Ignite magnitude. Don't worry about less chance to Ignite. You hit so hard that Ignite will always go off. I haven't found myself in a single situation yet when Ignite from my hammer didn't go off. So don't worry about that. That's just additional 4 seconds. Which of course this 4 seconds scale with temp chains. Enemies expire. Other effects on cursed enemies expire 25% slower. This is really good, and if you wanted to, you could do like something else, right? But I think these two work together perfectly. 25% less damage with hits sucks, but once again, the Ignite duration on this build is absolutely massive. Currently, I have 10 seconds, over 10 seconds Ignite duration. With temp chains, this becomes about 15% from my experience. I didn't do math exactly, but it's about 15-second Ignite. And this Ignite really burns fast. Even bosses with 35 million HP, it just burns them down fast. Everything else in the game just instantly evaporates. The map bosses I just kill straight up with the hit, without the Ignite. And this is an Ignite scaling build. So just with the hit they die. Because the flammability reduces their fire resistance so much, it hits like a truck. So my hammer currently, if I do the setup properly, hits for about 60 to 70 million damage. So 2 pinnacle bosses at the highest difficulty. That's how much damage it does. And I have very mediocre weapons for this point in the league, I'll be honest. So you want to use these two, and then very simple, just like on Molten Titan. The Molten Titan, I was swapping gems from Mace Strike to Perfect Strike against bosses. But by the way, you don't even have to do that against map bosses if your gear is good enough. You will kill map bosses instantly anyway. Only against pinnacle bosses, boom, you swap these two, and you literally just swap the weapon. We're gonna talk about this later. You swap the weapon, you're ready. It takes 2 seconds against pinnacle bosses, and you're ready, right? Very simple, very nice. It's nice that we have enough very effective supports for this build, because we only want the same support damage support gems on both of these skills, so you can just swap around and boom, you're done. Leap Slam, less cost. What's important is that I use the lowest possible level of Leap Slam, level 7. That will, of course, decrease your damage on Leap Slam, but that doesn't matter. What matters is that when it's level 7, even with your weapons, my weapons give me plus 11, that is a very low mana cost, and you don't need to worry about mana cost at all. If you're going to put level 19 Leap Slam, which is going to be level 30 after the bonuses from my weapons, the mana cost would be absolutely devastating, like 300 something. So even with inspiration, it's going to suck. So my recommendation here is to literally get the lowest level possible of Leap Slam, and still support it with inspiration, because truth be told, I can't think of anything useful on Leap Slam at all. So I put Rage in there. Rage is kind of useful, and I put Aftershock. You can put Momentum in here. Feel free to do whatever you want with this. I don't know, stun build up. Feel free to do whatever you want with this, because this basically reads as you're just a little bit more mobile, and we use it for mobility and for jumping over, I don't know, crevices or vines, a blooming field map or something like that, right? So this is this skill only purpose. Infernal Cry, very important. Raging Cry, basic setup, by the way. Every warrior build I've seen uses the same setup. Every Titan for Warbringer is a little bit different. Raging Cry, Premeditation, and Enraged War Cry. This reads that every important thing, your rotation against bosses looks like this. You throw a totem that gives you rage per second. We're gonna get to it in a second. It gives you 10 rage. Then you use War Cry. War Cry consumes 10 rage to give Hammer additional 30% more damage. And here is an important thing. You use War Cry after the boss is targetable. So, I don't know, you're doing Zest, he has a speech, we are one. And once he's done and he's targetable, then you use War Cry. Otherwise, you're not going to get this massive amount of power. I wonder if you can read how much. Yes, unique monsters always have 20 power. So you get 16 rage basically. For 16 rage, if you're going to use this near the boss. That is the only way we can generate rage on this build. We didn't have enough points for other rage generation modifiers or skills on the passive tree. So this will give you essentially 60% more damage on your hammer if you use it at the right time. And keep in mind, generate rage beforehand. Once it hits 10 or more, it doesn't matter, then you use the War Cry, boom, and your hammer hits for 30% more, right? And on top of that, you will get rage from this also, because you're nearby unique monsters, so you're gonna get 16 rage. And then, of course, Premeditation for 50% more damage once again. It's very important to use Infernal Cry with Hammer of the Gods. If you don't use it, you literally lose insane amount of damage. And that is absolutely not recommended. One more thing, Infernal Cry, just like Leap Slam, the lowest level possible, level 5. My big recommendation, because the only thing that these things get with levels is War Cry speed. By the way, it's complete nonsense. If I can rant for a second, I know we don't have time, but if I can rant for a second, this is a complete nonsense, because I think that Leap Slam and generally speaking warrior skills, the fact that they gain such absurd, ridiculous mana cost per level is kind of weird, especially that there's passive nodes for strength stacking builds that reduce your mana. And another stupid thing is that, you know, Infernal Cry also increases mana cost very quickly as it levels up, and the only thing that it gets is increased Warcry speed. All right, it gets a little bit more damage from Combust, but nobody cares about that. So like, come on, GG, make it make sense. All right, then with Shockwave Totem, the only reason for this skill to exist here is for you to generate charges, generate rage before the pinnacle boss fight. You don't care about this skill ever in any other scenario but pinnacle boss fights. And, you know, citadels maybe, right? You put it down. The only time I use it is boss. You put it down, you generate your rage. That's it. That is its only purpose. The Font of Rage, the skill, the support that will give you rage generation. Font of Mana, for some mana regeneration, I guess you're going to drop it down, so you're going to regen your mana faster? Question mark. And then Ancestral Argency for totem placement speed, for a little bit of quality of life. There's no reason why you shouldn't use this, you know. Then Solar Orb, thing that I didn't have in my previous video, which was mentioned by one of my viewers, rightfully so, because the other thing you can do before everything else, let's just say that boss has a speech, whatever, you drop Solar Orb, and the Solar Orb releases a pulse every second, and this pulse will apply Ignite, which means that we can utilize Fire Exposure and Strip Away. This means that every second you will apply a debuff on a boss that is in range. That will decrease enemies' fire resistance by 26%. So if you're low budget, or even if you're high budget, you're going to drop that before the boss, or even like a super tanky, I don't know, rare monster. I don't know, like stars will align, and the rare monster will get such disgusting modifiers that it's going to be tankier than a pinnacle boss. Then you can drop this thing on him and hammer him down, and yeah, 26% reduction, very powerful. Of course, this goes below 0%. The only thing that stops at 0% is penetration, and stuff like flammability, like minus resistance, like exposure. This goes down below 0 resistance of your enemies. So important to keep in mind. Like, don't you think that, oh, these enemies this boss has no resistance, so this is useless? No, it's always useful. It's always a damage multiplier. All right, and we're getting to the important stuff. All right, and the reason why I said before that it's not going to be that beginner friendly, and you'll have to make choices this build. Alright, so Blasphemy, right? Basic stuff. The reason why we use Blasphemy in this build is because it's extremely convenient. It turns your curses into auras, but at the cost of spirit, a pretty steep cost of spirit, and on top of that, your curses have much less effect to make it balanced. If that line wasn't there, then this would be the most broken build in the game, right? Because nothing can move. Ever. Now, we need to understand that Blasphemy by itself, you see this modifier here, 10% reduced reservation. That means that every curse that you put in there would reserve 54 spirit, right? So 2 curses, I don't think it's worth it to invest into 3. You would put Enfeeble there on top of that, and you would drastically reduce monsters' damage. But I don't think it's worth putting in there, because on top of the spirit cost you would need to solve, you would need to put a ring, like Doedra's something, and that gives you +1 to curse limit. So that's definitely not worth it. In my opinion, 2 curses are perfectly fine, and it's still pretty difficult to fit in everything regarding the spirit cost. As you can see, I have 276. I'm barely like above the limit. Alright, so Temp Chains, absolute must-have. It scales defensively and offensively at the same time. It's very powerful, and the most important thing about it is that this slow effect scales with 2 different modifiers. It scales with your curse effect, I should say aura effect, because again, Blasphemy turns your curses into auras, which means that the jewels that give you aura effect and the passive skills on the tree will scale. This counts as an aura now, and curse at the same time. So curse modifiers still work, and now aura modifiers work on this. So it scales very hard. But on top of that, there is one more modifier that scales with this slow, increases the slow effect, and this modifier debuffs you inflict have 30% increased slow magnitude. This is the reason why there are builds around that there are builds that walk around and literally stun enemies. Once again, this effect is going to be worse on rare and unique monsters, but you can scale it to 100%, so that the normal enemies and to a certain extent magic enemies in range literally can't move. They're permanently stunned, right? Once again, I mentioned during the showcase, I don't think that's worth it. I think that if you're going to scale this slow to a certain point, going above that is not necessary, depending on how much investment that's going to take. I think what I did here is like optimal setup, but someone might obviously disagree. And I'm going to read the comments and see who disagrees. Next up, flammability is very simple. We use Avatar of Fire in this build, so we do pure fire damage, and it just decreases the fire resistance of monsters. This curse is literally just a massive damage multiplier for us. This is like putting, like, I don't know, 2 or 3, probably 3 damage links in every single one of your skills. That's how much damage it adds. It's like, imagine if you had a 9 link on Hammer of the Gods and 9 link on Mace Strike, right? 3 additional links. That's how much damage it does, with enough curse effect. If you're going to look closely, I have in total 96 curse effect. That is after the blasphemy reduced it by 41%, 41 less percent. So this is basically, this 36% is doubled. So I have about 71%. I reduce enemies' resistances by 71%, and of course that goes below 0. This is a massive damage multiplier. Absolutely disgusting. One thing you can do, of course, as I mentioned before, there are 3 useful curses that there are in the game. The last one being, of course, there are other curses that reduce the respective elemental resistance of different types, right? But we do fire, so obviously we use flammability. The other one being temporal, enfeeble. And enfeeble reduces damage of monsters by a lot. So if you ever, just for fun, if you decide that, oh, I have mirrored weapons, or like insanely giga broken weapons and equipment, and everything, and for some reason I don't want that 70% damage multiplier, basically, then you could use enfeeble and make enemies around you completely useless. Like, they're completely useless at this point. I'm not sure if if enfeeble is going to work on on ground effects. It definitely doesn't work, but I'm not sure if it's going to work on, for example, there is a rare monster that has corpse explosion modifier. I'm not sure if it's going to work on that. I'm not 100% sure. I don't know if it's the same in PoE 1. In PoE 1 it wouldn't, I'm pretty sure. In PoE 2, I don't know, I'll be honest. But I think this setup is the best still. Temp chains makes enemies literally look like... Okay, I almost said something bad, but... what I'm trying to say is temp chains is absolutely enough to make enemies borderline useless. Also, make sure to quality your curses to 23% quality. Why 20%? 20%, and how do you do it? You literally just open stash, right? You do that a few times, by the way. You get temp chains. You put quality in there. You put this thing. Actually, this is not even needed. You just put quality in there, and you just slam Val Orb, and you wait until you find 23%. It's not expensive. It's cheap. I got myself 23 and 23% very quickly. I think this was in 3 tries. This was in 5 tries, something like that. So, at this additional 1% increased effective curse, I mean, for almost no cost, sure, why not? Ritualistic Curse, this support is very important. 50% increased area of effect. That's it. 50% increased area of effect, right? On top of that, there's not really many other useful things that you could put in there. Of course, there is this thing, 40% more area of effect, but we kind of need it here. So in my opinion, get this 50% increased area of effect and you're going to be fine. Then Encumbrance, 15% increased slow magnitude. Once again, this makes your temp change slow stronger. And Hidden Curse, there's quite a bit to talk about here. So 25% increased effect of curses. You know, it's not a small amount, but it's not like insanely huge amount. I have what? I have 96%. Without this support, I have 82%, right? So it is going to change your power of the curse a little bit for sure. But here is the problem. What it reads is cost and reservation multiplier is 140%. That's right. That means that your curses, your auras, don't cost 54 spirit anymore, as we mentioned before. Now they cost, like, adding this increases the cost by 44. That means that this increases the cost by 22. That means that the cost increases from 54 to 76 per curse. And that sucks. And that's why I said that you will have to make you will have to make decisions on this build, because I tried to fit in as much spirit as possible, and you can have different approaches to how you want to do this build. For example, if you want to not use this and not use Alpha's Howl at all, then what you can do, oh, unfortunately I don't have this helmet. What you can do is put here like a very high ES helmet with resistances, other stuff like that, right? And not only you will completely forget the dexterity cost, because you're not going to need dexterity after that in the build at all, but also you'll get like 4,000 ES or something by doing that. But the cost is going to be massive, because the cost is going to be you can't be using Hide and Curse anymore, and you can't be using Blink anymore, because you're going to lose all the spirit, right? So that's a pretty massive cost. Otherwise, you can just use Alpha's Howl, and preferably it should be corrupted, because you will still be struggling with spirit cost if it's not corrupted. If it's the default one that gives you 100 spirit might not be enough, is what I'm trying to say, right? Depending on how much you have on your amulet and stuff like that. So these are the decisions that you will have to make. The setup I'm showing you is the setup that I tested, and it feels the best to me, because stacking ES at a certain point where build already feels incredibly tanky, in my opinion, wasn't really necessary. I haven't died once I switched to my... Once I started playing with this setup, like, I haven't died. Even before that, I haven't died a single time on this build, even on this disgustingly dangerous Citadel map. But like right now, I didn't have a close call. With this temp chains, this is in 10,000 ES, this is just 100% enough. And of course, there's more things you can do. You can increase the slow effect on this more. On the passive tree, there's strong nodes that I didn't take because I decided to go for something else. But these are the decisions that you have to make. Like, use Alpha's Howl with a Spirit Amulet and increase the power of your curses one more time by 25%. And have Blink. This is really important. That's why it feels good to me. It's because this Blink, like having a teleport every 2 seconds, that doesn't really, make you use your slow animations because you're warrior. Just feels so good, man. Like the build started feeling so much better with Blink. So this is why you'll have to go through decisions. You'll have to make plenty of decisions how you want to build your character exactly. If you decide to go for this build, but this is what I do in my opinion. This is just a very, very, very good combination. This is the best possible, like, this feels the best, is what I'm trying to say. From all the options, different variations of this build that I researched, that I tried, this feels the best. So, alright, let's move on. Blink with Ingenuity, basic stuff. You teleport, and this means that you teleport more often. It just feels amazing. The best part about this, it's not the best part, but what is cool about it is that you can leap slam into blink, that stops you from having the animation when you slow down here for like I don't know, a third of a second. Well, guess what? You don't do it anymore. Boom. That feels so good, man. It actually feels like, you know, it feels like with this, it doesn't even matter that Warrior is slow. It feels like he's fast, and that's the best thing you can do about Warrior, I guess. Like, this is the best thing in the game. Then Grim Feast, I'm going to put them in how important they are. Grim Feast is absolutely mandatory while mapping. This will, of course, double your ES, and on top of that, recover your ES in places where you can't recover at all. Like, for example, less recovery maps. Grim Feast is absolutely mandatory and amazing. And the last thing you should use is Herald of Ash. Now, this is... I need to talk about it for a second. So, number one, Herald of Ash. I've played it with it for quite some time, and I think it's good. I think it does increase your clear speed quite decently, because keep in mind, this build, we're stacking a lot of area of effect, and Herald is an attack. So, it reads as an attack, right? That's weird. It doesn't show here. But I'm pretty sure that... it's AoE. I'm pretty sure that it still reads as an attack and increases the area... increase the area of Herald of Ash. That being said, the area is pretty good, in my opinion, and it will increase your clear speed, and it feels pretty good to use. That being said, this is the least important persistent buff, in my opinion. So if you don't want to spend this 30 spirit, then you don't have to. But if you want to, you can try using Herald of Ash and test how it feels for you specifically. But this is what I use. Herald of Ice, before someone is going to ask me, Herald of Ice requires you to switch ring, which sucks. And on top of that, we use Avatar of Fire, so that would require... Let me put it this way, just to make things faster, because I could talk about it for 10 minutes. I tested it. I don't think it's worth it. I don't think it's worth investment. You could have fun with it, like try to do it. There is also this mace that completely ignores the fact that we're doing pure fire damage. And with this mace and with the ring, you will actually do the full Herald of Ice setup. But that means that you will lose, like, you know, I don't know, 60% of your damage if you use this weapon. So if you have insane cultist Greyhammer that will mitigate the fact that your second weapon has 50 DPS, then sure, you can give it a try, but I wouldn't recommend it, to be honest. I wouldn't recommend it. I think I'd just put in slamming in Herald of Ash with Fire Mastery. You don't even need that, but you can put it in for +1, I guess, for a little bit more damage. Slam it in the Herald of Ash and just calling it a day, and not sacrificing any of your important gear slots is going to be better. Dude, why do skill gems always take so long? Alright, passive skill tree. Hold on, guys. Sorry, I'm going to drink some water. Just give me 1 second. Alright. Passive skill tree. As I mentioned before, you want to respec. This tree is absolutely not going to work during campaign or anything like that whatsoever. You want to respec at decently high enough level. In my opinion, the absolute minimum is 84. But it will be honestly the best if it was something like 88, maybe 90. In my opinion, it's pretty fair because the leveling up is very, very quick until level 90. After that, it slows down a little bit, but it's still doable. The biggest slowdown I believe is after level 96. At level 97, it's just insanely slow. Yeah, I think until level 95 you level pretty fast. After level 95 it slows down. But anyway, if you're doing tier 15 maps, we're going here brutal. I'm going to talk about the skills that we use on both trees, and then weapon swap number 1, weapon swap number 2. So, brutal, get this fire penetration. That's going to be very useful for both trees because 90% fire pen on both trees is going to just feel good, especially in the maps where enemies have additional resistances. So, let's get this. Relentless Vindicator, because it's a strong one-pointer. Area, boom. Then we get Aura Effect. This cluster basically inspired me to do this build. How crazy is that? Because that is an absolute insane amount of 36, 56 for Titan it's more, right? Because normally these are 8%. So for Titan it's 12% more. 56% of increased, basically 56% increased curse effectiveness for us. So that's absolutely insane. And we're going here and we're branching towards this area, towards Witch, and towards Warrior. Now, important thing, actually, never mind. I'm going to talk about later when we get to jewels. We're going through this jewel socket. You're going to see the general idea here. We want to get as many jewels as possible, and there is a reason for that. We're going this way. We're getting to this spot at Resolute Technique. Now, this is not mandatory. You could save a decent amount of points if you decided to. Like, you could actually save from here, like this, all of this, if you had accuracy on your rings, on your breach rings. Generally speaking, on your if you had accuracy, very high accuracy on your rings, or somewhere else. If you had a lot of accuracy, technically you could skip this. Losing this area would suck a little bit, but area is still massive anyway. So there are other ways to get even more area, so that would be fine. You could skip all of this and invest into something else. But I don't have these. I have damage on my rings instead, so this is what I do. It's like we're going this way, Resolute Technique. The good thing is that you don't care about modifiers like evasive and stuff like that. You always hit, period. So that's a really cool thing about that, I guess. Jewel socket over here, this 1 point. We're going down over here, Avatar of Fire. Boom, we get Giant's Blood and another jewel socket here. As you can see, you probably now realize why I said that the higher level, the better. You get to the point where you're just literally spending 3 points to get jewel sockets, right? So the build is going to be totally playable at level, for example, 90. But before that, you will just not be able to get your core necessary passives for the build to feel good. That's why I would say a minimum level 84. Now you might be surprised. This is a semi-strength stacking build. Why not these? Why not this cluster? Is because this cluster, I don't want to say it sucks, but it kind of sucks. I can't believe that there is a cluster for strength stacking builds that I do not want to take because I have better nodes. Random nodes are better than this. I did testing. I did everything, guys. Trust me. This cluster is not that good. The worst part about this is that it reduces your mana by a lot. So you're going to, if you take all this, you're going to go from 800 to like 500 mana. You're going to reach the point where when you don't have enough mana for a single hammer to drop, which is another problem. So I do not recommend this cluster. They're better options. I could flame this cluster for a long time, but let's just move on. Okay, then we're going here. We're getting this jewel because it's only 3 points, so it's obviously worth it. Jewel here, jewel. This spot is important. I'm going to talk about jewels in a second, but this is the cluster that gives us a lot of energy shield, a lot of protection against stuns, pretty much almost stun immunity, I want to say, and additional area of effect, which is very, very important. And this area of effect is global, which means that it works on curses as well. This is one of the very few clusters, the other one being here, that gives us actually area of effect for everything. So that's very nice. Then we're going here, curse effect. We're going here, additional curse. That is obviously absolutely mandatory. And in my opinion, what is absolutely mandatory is Chaos Inoculation after that. The things I took in the meantime were these 2 intelligence nodes because I thought that it's worth it for 37 intelligence. I would lose a lot of strength if I had to. First of all, you need to take this small node. So if you need to take this small node to get to Patient Barrier, which is insane, and these ES nodes, then why not take Ingenuity at the same time? Alright, and that's more or less skill tree. As you can see, the general idea is that you want to get you want to get as many jewels as possible while keeping the crucial passives for yourself. Now I'm going to quickly go over weapon swaps. It's pretty simple. Weapon swap, weapon set number 1 is the weapons set that I use Mace Strike with. And you want to get attack speed, a little bit of attack speed. Conveniently, there is a very nice attack speed cluster over here. And this cluster actually kind of solves the attack speed problems that we had with this build before in my very first showcase. So that is absolutely amazing. I solved attack speed with this. It feels much better now. These 2 points, maybe you can see, these 2 points are actually weapon set number 1, just for area. And more area, boom. More area here, boom. And additional 25% attack damage. More area here, boom. That's basically how it goes. Everything goes into area. And this cluster over here, area as well. Right? It's just the more area, the better, because area scales your Mace Strike, and you get damage from still different sources. So damage is not that important. Damage is still nice on Mace Strike, of course, but it's not priority. The priority is to make the area from Cultist Greyhammer as big as possible. That's why during the showcase I was just clearing the entire screen with a single Mace Strike. The second weapon swap is very simple. On the second weapon swap, we're using Hammer of the Gods. You might not be able to see this, but I have used with weapon set number 2 selected only. And we use just basically as much damage as possible. So this damage over here, Ignite Magnitude, which is very important. Chance to Ignite, Fire Pen, these for 72% increased damage while affected by Warcry, which is every time. And more less attack speed doesn't matter here, so this is just more attack damage and more ignite magnitude and duration. Yeah, that's how it goes. The most important cluster for all these is this one for Hammer of the Gods. These 3 and this, because this will just increase your duration, increase your damage, increase your ignite magnitude. This is very, very important. I guess I would say that maybe these 4 points are also important, because with this node you will never miss your ignite. It will always ignite the enemy, because the hammer just does a lot of damage, so it's a good skill with ignite. That's all there is to it. Alright, now we're getting to the important part, jewels. Alright, so number 1, everyone's question probably is, why the hell are you using Varana again? The jewel costs 45 divines. I'm not going to have enough currency to use that. Just let me be silent for a second and let me show you something. This is absolutely not something that you need. I used it because I took it from the previous character, from the monk, and I just started using it, and I thought, you know, compared to this setup, it's a little bit better, so why not just keep on using it, right? But if you have Ghostwrite, keep in mind that it needs to be corrupted with, like, you know, by default it's 50% of maximum life converted to energy shield. It should be corrupted with like 60% or something like that. My maximum is, I think, 62, so that would be the best. But if you have Ghostwrite laying around, you can literally just do this change. Just drop this completely. Or not even drop this if you want. You can keep this jewel and put a rare jewel in there for more curse effect, right? And if you want to, you can drop that, get the ES nodes, and boom, you're just... You don't need this. You literally don't need this. I did it because, you know, once again, like, I had it. But, and it is a little bit stronger because... on Ghostwrite, obviously you don't have these other modifiers like intelligence, resistances that you can have on the rare armor, but the difference is not really massive. It's really not. You can totally use Ghostwrite and just no jewel, and that will save you 45 diffs from the jewel and another 10 diffs or so from a very, very high energy shield base chest, and that's it. Just use Ghostwrite, man. I use it because it is a little bit better, and I have it, but as a budget version, you absolutely do not have to. As you can see, I have 300 more ES, 27 intelligence, and 30 increased cold resistance. That's all I get from it, right, in comparison. So, Varana, you can use it if you have it. Budget version, Ghostwrite, completely fine. So this jewel is not important at all. A jewel that is important, and that's why the skill tree looks the way it does, is against the darkness. You should get against the darkness with 4% strength. Obviously, 5% is absolutely not mandatory. And preferably 4% of damage as extra fire damage, I think, is the best stat, unless I'm going to remind myself something better real fast. But I think that's the best one, because this will just give you more damage per notable here, and that's a very nice combo. On top of that, I have anointed slow burn, which turns this jewel turns this node into absolute insane node right now. I believe allocated it, anointed on my amulet, yes. So yeah, I get massive amount of strength. As you can see, this jewel gives me, without this jewel I wouldn't be able to wear my weapons. This jewel gives me 140 strength, good amount of ES, good amount of damage. This jewel is very important in this slot, because this slot on top of that gives you powerful nodes like this one, 40% energy shield. This one is really good because with these two nodes, you pretty much don't worry. You don't have to worry about stuns anymore. So that's amazing. These nodes are good here for energy shield. This one is very good if you have actually energy shield helmet, and if you don't have alpha sal. Unfortunately, without energy shield helmet, it's kind of useless. But I still allocate it, obviously, for the insane bonus to strength and damage. This jewel is mandatory. Without this 4% strength jewel, you're going to struggle tremendously getting to 636 strength needed for the heaviest weapons. Of course, there are ways of mitigating that problem by just putting soul cores that switch your attribute requirements to intelligence. So that's going to be fine. You can have reduced requirements on your weapons. That's also going to be fine. You get the idea, right? But if you don't want to worry about that at all, strength, and of course strength with Vorana gives you, it doesn't matter if you're doing budget version or the expensive version, it will give you ES always, because this gives you energy shield based on your life, and strength gives you life. So this will give you ES, and this also will give you ES because the more strength you have, the more percent ES you have. The only difference is that this one is giving you percent ES, and the Ghost Ride is giving you flat ES, right? So that's the only difference. So this one, in my opinion, mandatory. It shouldn't be expensive, by the way. But the more important stat here, if you really are on low budget, the more important stat here is 4% strength. The other one can be resistance. I don't know. Then we're going here. There's one more unique jewel, and it's this one. No, we're not using Adorned. The very important, in my opinion, jewel is Megalomaniac. Now, Megalomaniac is a jewel that gives you 2 or up to 3 notables, depending on how it rolls. And I think 3 divines. I'm gonna sell that. And I think that Megalomaniac is very important in this build. Sorry, excuse me for a second. It's a big trade, so I'm going to go with it real fast. Megalomaniac is really important because 2 notables in a single jewel socket is a big power boost, right? Huge power boost. What I did here is I bought one, and for very cheap, by the way. Nobody was selling this. Nobody was selling this for big amount of money. Zone control and immolation, which is kind of insane, not gonna lie. And when it comes to passive tree, there is one thing we need to talk about. This cluster, generally speaking, is insane. This cluster is insane. And here is one of the choices that you can make while building this character. You can change this tree a little bit, right? By doing something like that. You're going to go over here, boom, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and this cluster you would allocate on weapon set number 1. You don't need it on weapon set number 2, right? For massive area of effect of curses. And on top of that, you would have access to arguably the best energy shield nodes in the game at the same time. That obviously would require you to get rid of many points. So you'd have to, get rid of this. You would sacrifice damage. You would sacrifice area, but you could do that because, in my opinion, if you don't have zone control, this node is too insane not to have it. It's too important. So you should always have it. So if you don't have it on Megalomaniac, then you should anoint it and then get a different Megalomaniac. There's a lot of very, very good notes. Hell, you could get Megalomaniac with... No, that's too expensive. But you could get Megalomaniac with Cremation is insane. Volcanic Skin is decent. Burning Strikes is decent. This obviously is very good. There's so many notables that you could get, but keep in mind to always get Megalomaniac with 2 notables that are good for your build. Don't buy with only 1, because 1 is not worth it. But 2, on the other hand, is super worth it. If you're going to find Megalomaniac that has 2 useful nodes, it can be anything. It could be even something like this, 25% increased maximum energy shield, with something like that, right? That still would be worth it. But keep that in mind when you buy one and when you try to find one, boys, because this is important. Once again, if you don't have... Hell, you can anoint this. These are right now. These are very, 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 very cheap, right? But if you can't find this one, then you can anoint this. How expensive is this? Unfortunately, it's expensive, but it is what it is. You can anoint this, and you can find Megalomaniac with slow burn. Or even Firestarter wouldn't be too bad, because enemies ignited by you have -5 to enemy meters. This is actually pretty good. It's also pretty good, right? Or, something else, somewhere else that's going to be very strong. You totally can do, and it's going to be fine. And we're going to get to the most important jewel. Every single other slot that I have is filled with a jewel like this one. And this is extremely, extremely important. And without these jewels, this is why this build, straight up, the reason why this build is not viable in SSF, is because without these jewels, the build is going to feel bad. And I might surprise you, the most important aspect of this jewel is increased area of effect of curses. Like, right now, my curses have area of 6.5 meters. From my experience, I've noticed that it started feeling good at about 6 meters. At 6 meters, it started feeling really good, right? But in order to get to this point, you need to be stacking these jewels left and right. 23, 21, it's up to 25, 25, boom, 20, 22. Like, you need to be 22, 20, 21. You need to keep on stacking this. If your aura effect... if your curse area of effect of curses is going to be small, people will start monsters will start shooting you from from the edges of the screen, would not affected by the curses, and it's just not going to feel that good. This is one of the most important stats. And of course, at the same time, these jewels have to have increased effect of auras, because once again, you get stronger flammability, you get stronger slow. So this is very important. So these 2 stats on these jewels are very, very important. I'm not saying that they have to be 10%, 25%, right? If they're going to be like, I don't know, 7% or 8% of increased effect of auras from your aura skills, and like, I don't know, 20% increased of area of effect, then if you're going to have a jewel like that in every single jewel slot, it will already start feeling good. And then you can just start upgrading, them, start buying better ones and better ones, like, and so on. But you need these. You need them. Like, once you respec at level 84 or whatever level it's going to be, you need these jewels. Now, you don't need that many. I level this character up also. I level up the previous one, and I know how it feels with like 2 less or 1 less. It's totally fine, right? But my point is that you need to keep on stacking them and investing into them, because they scale to the most important stats for us in the game. And these are 2 prefixes, right? When it comes to suffixes, other stats are whatever you're going to find, really. It doesn't matter. Debuffs on you expire faster. It's okay. Gain maximum energy shield as stun threshold. It's okay. stun threshold. I'm trying to find. This is completely useless. I'm trying to find something that is going to be. And this is completely useless. This is corrupted with intelligence. That's nice. The other one is useless. Yeah, you get the idea, right? This one has increased chance to ignite. That doesn't really matter. Yeah, they're pretty much dead. There are some good stats here. Obviously, if you had one with maximum resistance, maximum cold resistance, ooh, that'll be freaking nasty. This one's probably the best. Increased duration of damaging elements on enemies. But honestly, I'm actually not sure because the duration on the Hammer of the Gods of the Ignite is so insane already that you don't even need that. So with the bottom line is the most important aspect here is getting these prefixes right, getting the area of effect and effect of auras from your aura skills. Period. All right, and we're getting to we're getting to items and budget items. The most important aspect of this build is Cultist Greyhammer. You're going to notice immediately I have plus 15 spirit here. This is one thing you can do to solve the spirit problems. I wanted to play with Herald of Ash, so I needed a little bit more spirit. What I had on my Alpha Soul Corruption wasn't enough, and this is the choice that you have to make. I decided to sacrifice the 30% elemental damage with attacks and put in 15 spirit instead. And that's it. That's how you can manipulate your spirit amount and sacrifice damage for spirit and vice versa. And if you feel like you want to put even something more, something else, then you'll have to keep on sacrificing or getting better corruptions. Blah 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 blah. Right? You get the idea. So weapon expert cultist Greyhammer. This one is actually very mediocre. I bought it for 3 divines. It has very low DPS with plus 4 melee skills and wed. The most important stats on this weapon is the more level of all melee skills, the better, and wed at the same time. The physical damage is also important, but not as important, because if the damage on this weapon is low, then you can still get a lot of flat damage from your second weapon, if necessary, and rings. So the most important one of the most important stats here is plus all melee skills and wed. I mean, increased elemental damage with attacks. Second weapon, obviously you only need one cultist Greyhammer. Second weapon is going to be melee skills, elemental damage with attacks. You might be surprised because I have wed in all my weapons, the soul cores, right, that give you 30 wed. I tested both. This one is a little bit better because I have low DPS weapons. I said it many times, the higher the flat phase on your weapon is, the bigger the chance that iron runes are going to be better. But since I have very low physical damage weapons, wed is actually better because, I mean, look at this weapon. This weapon increases my elemental damage with attacks by 190% and plus 7 to all melee skills. So it doesn't even matter. This is my best weapon, and it doesn't even matter that it has trash physical damage because it still hits like a truck because of these other modifiers. So you don't necessarily have to look for very high physical damage weapons. You should focus on these stats first, and then the higher the physical damage, the better. And then on the swap, you can completely ignore this because I don't use this at all. On the swap, I have another weapon like this one. This is another weapon like this one, but it's worse. So your better weapon on your swap, you just want to when you want to hit your Hammer of the Gods. This is how you normally play during maps. The Pinnacle boss comes over. Time for Pinnacle boss. You just swap this. Boom. You use Warcry when the boss is targetable, and boom, you drop Hammer. And that's really all it takes, right? That's the only thing you do. That's when it comes to weapons. So you need 3. You don't need 4. This is just like a placeholder. This doesn't matter. Next, Alpha's Howl. I mentioned that before, but Alpha's Howl preferably with Spirit Corruption. But if you want to make a different choice, and for example you don't want Blink, you don't want this Hidden Curse, then instead you can get a very high Energy Shield helmet and get 15,000 ES. It's your choice, right? I think it's not worth it. I think it's better to have 10k ES and still be almost immortal while mapping, and have blink and have stronger effective curses. I think it's much better. And now a big surprise, Hova. Hova is absolutely not mandatory. Before someone is going to say, oh, another Hova build. Yeah, it's not. You can totally use. The reason why I use Hova here is because people that corrupt Hovas, when they see this modifier, it's basically a brick. They think it's completely useless. And it's funny because for this build, this is the best modifier in the game, right? There's nothing better. Even if you didn't have this, then you can use literally any gloves. These are arguably better, by the way. But you can use any gloves, literally any, with like flat damage, with some ES, with resistances. Attack speed is very important. And the most important thing is that debuffs you inflict have 28. This goes from 20 to 30. So the higher the better, right? Preferably you can get 30 slow magnitude, and this increases your slow from temporal chains. It's very, very important to have that because this is a massive amount. They probably overshot it a little bit because this is 2 times more than this support. This is a lot of additional slow from temp chains. So take it and use it, boys. Once again, the reason I'm using Hova is that I decided that, well, I need strength, I need dexterity, I need intelligence. I need dexterity for this. So these gloves give me both stats, and at the same time, I get 30 increased slow magnitude, and this literally is a brick for people that sell these gloves. They're worth the same amount. Excuse me, they're worth even less than a normal Hova. These are worth even less. People were selling it for less. The normal Hova with stats like this was like 4 or 5 divines. I bought these for 3 divines. And you could buy with like 20 dexterity, 20 intelligence instead of this roll for 2 divines. So like I see no point why you shouldn't use these honestly in this build, because they will increase your damage a little bit attack speed. It's only 12% attack speed with my amount of dexterity. These one would provide even more, and +2 to melee skills. I think these one are a little bit better, but I just don't want to bother with stats. But like these one at the same time provide me dexterity, intelligence, which is very nice, and they give you some flat damage, which don't worry, it's lightning because it gets converted into fire with Avatar of Fire. So these gloves are actually useful. They're not useless. I don't only use them for dexterity and intelligence. These other stats are, also a little bit useful. But the most important thing is you need increased slow magnitude. Period. You need that. So keep that in mind. This is absolutely mandatory. Now ingenuity, of course, you don't need 88%. You can buy a normal one with like 75% or something for 20 divs. It's 88% because I had it on my monk, so I just changed the gear. But yeah, with ingenuity, it's always the higher the better. Now, one thing, this is probably the first build I'm going to say that ingenuity is kind of mandatory in this build, because it's going to be tough to get to stat requirements, necessary stat requirements, without ingenuity. It's going to be tough because you need to have a lot of stats on your rings. So it's going to be tough. Boots, very simple, movement speed, intelligence, and as much ES as possible with other stats if you can get them. I bought them for very cheap, I think 2 or 3 divines. Reduced chill duration is very nice stat also. If you're from all their suffixes, you can have additional resistance or reduced chill duration on you. But reduced chill duration on you, for the most part, is considered as a dead stat. So the price will not increase if you see this stat. That's the good part. So you can get boots like that for very cheap, actually. Then we have Amulet. This is important. Amulet, you want to get as many stats as possible. And Spirit. Preferably at least 42 Spirit. Because if you don't use Alpha's Howl, you need 42 Spirit, I believe, from my calculations, in order to fit everything. If you don't want to be using Blink and Hide and Curse, so you need at least 42 Spirit. But the higher the better. Yeah. And then Spirit, in importance, the most important stats on Amulet. Spirit, all attributes, Strength. After that, maximum energy shield and energy shield. And if it had like +2 melee skills, it would be. But you absolutely don't need that. This critical hit chance is completely useless for me because yeah, I can't crit. So, but in order of importance, these are the most important stats: spirit, attributes, and strength. If you're going to have these three stats, then this is a good amulet already. If it had more maximum energy shield, then even better. And rings are very important. Rings, this one covers my resistances, and this one covers my stat needs. On top of that, this ring is kind of insane. I had it on my Warbringer on Captain Poland, and this ring on this build is insane. On Captain Poland, it wasn't that insane because it had no life, but on this build, it's kind of insane. This amount of damage and flat fire damage is actually very high. These are both tier 1 stat. Wait, this is. No. This is. Oh, yes, it is. Okay, this is T1 fire and T1% fire, boosted by fire modifier quality, and then resistances and some strength. Very, very good ring. This one also is not bad, but I bought it for very cheap, I think. The rings like that without if they don't have life, they're not very expensive. The rings start becoming very expensive. You know when they get triple stat. If they only have double stat, they're cheap. And this one has also physical damage, like some flat damage, some fire damage, attributes, strength, fire resistance. This is basically the name of the game. The most important thing that you need on your rings with Ingenuity is to get as many stats as possible. Then you want one high resistance or all elemental resistance stat, and then you want preferably fire damage and some flat. It doesn't matter. It doesn't need to be fire. Just fire damage and some flat, and you're going to be fine. This is what you're looking at when it comes to rings, and you should be able to get not this, but something fairly similar for about 1 div. I've been checking them for a long time on the market. Trust me, something similar to this is going to cost you 1 div. 1 divine. 1 divine, 2 divines, 3 divines, something like that. And oh, I didn't talk about chest yet. Yeah, if you're not using the budget version, and if you're using the ghost, if you're not using ghost, right? Excuse me, been talking for an hour and 11 minutes. Then you want basically a chest with as much energy shield as possible. And that's really it. Like, intelligence is a bonus, cold resistance. I've been trying to. Energy shield chests are insanely cheap. Alright, let me put it this way. They're not cheap, but the higher it gets, the price skyrockets very quickly. This is a 900 ES chest with 17 intelligence and 18 cold resistance. I've been trying to sell it for like 3 days now for 1 divine, and it doesn't go. 900 EN energy shield with int and cold res for 1 divine, and it doesn't go. Nobody wants that thing. So that kind of shows you. And if you're going to go to this one, which is 100 and something more, yes, 140, 433, this instantly will cost 20 more divines. So you can easily get like a chest for like 900 something energy shield for very, very cheap, for less than that, and it should be fine. Alright, did I miss everything? I think that's about it. There is one more thing I wanted to talk about is if you're using Ghostwrite, if you decided to not use Vorana and go this way, you can do one thing that will make your ES even higher than with the expensive setup. What you can do is start getting life on your equipment. Get life here. Get life on your rings, which is going to be expensive, but you can get life here, life here. This gets boosted by Ingenuity, so this is going to be a 400 life you can get from rings, another 100 something from Amulet. You can get life on boots, and you can get like 600, 700 extra life. 600, 700 extra life for Ghostwrite is like 400 flat energy shield. That's going to increase your ES by another 2,000 or something. So that's something you can do. If you're going to be, as I mentioned before, making decisions how you want your build to look like, this is something you can consider, right? Because this is something that can increase your ES even higher, and depending on where you want to go, it's either Ghostwrite and have a lot of life on all your equipment, or having no Ghostwrite and having 0 life on your equipment, because it's a dead stat if you don't have Ghostwrite. So, something to keep in mind, right? And that's pretty much going to be it, boys. Thank you very much for watching. This video is right now 3 minutes shorter than the previous build guide. Uh, uh, it's still way longer than I thought it's going to be. But if you want to talk about everything that you want to explain, that it just takes time. I guess it is what it is. Hope you guys are not going to kill me for the duration of this video. Thank you very much for watching. Once again, if you have any questions, feel free to let me know down in the comments. I read every single comment every time. If I don't respond, sometimes that means that the answer is obvious, or sometimes I answer to obvious questions, but it is what it is. I read every single one, so let me know what you think. Again, my apologies. This is a build that is not going to be beginner friendly, but we are 2 months into the league at this point, and I would expect definitely way more beginner friendly build guides at the start of the league, and then as the league progresses, I just want to have some fun. This is what I'm trying to say. So yeah, this one is not beginner friendly, but I hope you guys, the ones that will decide to go for it, I hope you guys gonna enjoy it, because this is the strongest warrior build I've played, and it's really fun to play. Alright guys, take care, see ya next time, bye bye.